I haven't been listening to talk radio that much the past few days. Well, no, I'll say the past 2 days. I've been catching up on a lot of podcasts and stuff like that who aren't traditional talk radio people. Talk radio it's lacking for me right now, And, like a friend of mine sent me a message this morning, not too long ago, actually. And he asked me, was I listening to Mike Gallagher? And I was just like, nah, I haven't listened to him, in a couple days, or Meathead. I listened to, I think, Clay and Buck. The last time I listened to Clay and Buck, I think it was Friday. Or Thursday, I don't know. Whenever Clay tried to convince us all Kamala Harris was gonna run again. And, she's not. But, who am I to tell him that, he's wrong? You got some good people out there, man, but it's just lacking, like, God, I miss the days of Rush, man. Because I just know, because Rush was so ahead of the curve, that the things a lot of these hosts are talking about and their opinions and their analysis and pontificating, it's so far off, man. And I feel like it's just more of follow the, hottest social media post right now versus people actually thinking about what's really going on. And, trying to really explain it, in a methodical way that makes sense and is more plausible. It's just, I don't know, man. But, my friend in the message, he said, you have the ability to make people not talk about something or talk about something. And I didn't know what he meant, but he said, I'll send you the clip and you'll know what I mean. But Mike Gallagher was talking about something that, I don't know. There's just so many ways and there's just so many ways to talk about what's going on today. And I don't know, man, like, it's like we've lost our way in a lot of ways with talk radio. I'll give you a perfect example. And this is, as Rush would say, my intelligence guided by experience, right? I'll give you a perfect example. I watched a clip of Elizabeth Warren talking to Mamdani. Now, I've seen that clip played on Fox News a couple times, and I watch people talk about it. I'm going to tune into Clay and Buck today just to see if they talk about Mamdani and Elizabeth Warren. But the first thing I noticed in that clip, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm telling you, I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to a couple shows today. But what I'm about to say to you, I can promise you, none of these shows probably said to you. Not even, the great Clay Travis and his wisdom. The first thing that stuck out with what Elizabeth Warren said, she said we're going to experiment with, like, groceries and something to that effect. Here's what she said.
Someone stands up and says, I will lead this city by making it more affordable. And here are my plans, real plans, plans to deliver on childcare, plans to deliver on housing, plans to deliver. We're going to experiment. We're going to try things on groceries. That is the Democratic message.
So when I heard that, right, the one thing that stuck out to me was, because we know what Mamdani's all about. He's a stone cold Marxist communist. He wants government control, supermarkets and everything. Stone cold communist. Elizabeth Warren said she wants to experiment with communism. And I guarantee you, nobody in talk radio picked up on that. They're just picking up on her endorsing his Marxist, crazy communist ass. But nobody picked up on this woman saying she wants to experiment with communism. Those are the kind of things that if I had a microphone, I'd be telling my listeners. I mean, it's just like with that Sydney Sweeney thing. Like, I'm so glad that they're really not touching on it no more. It shouldn't have went on as long as it did, and I wish that, you know, President Trump would have, like, just, you know, Trump, you know. Trump is funny. I mean, what he said was hilarious. You got it. The guy's a comedian. He's got a personality, and, you know, he's quick with it. But that whole Sydney Sweeney thing, man, I mean, she's so basic, yo. Like, she just got big tits. She don't fill jeans. You know, my wifey's jeans are much better. Much better. My wifey can fill a pair of jeans, like, but if I had a show, right, in a microphone, I would have dived right into eugenics, because it's the Democrat Party who literally propped up the mother of eugenics, Margaret Sanger. That racist piece of shit, Margaret Sanger. And how they're using and have been using for decades Planned Parenthood under the guise of, you know, women's rights and abortion rights and everything else in between to keep the birth rate of black people and minorities at a certain level. And that's all because of Margaret Sanger. She started all that Planned Parenthood stuff. She is the mother of eugenics. Hillary Clinton literally got a Margaret Sanger award. She defended Margaret Sanger's ideology about eugenics.
I have to tell you that it was a great privilege when I was told that I would receive this award. I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. Another of my great friends, Ellen Chesler, is here, who wrote a magnificent biography of Margaret Sanger called Woman of Valor. And when I think about what she did all those years ago in Brooklyn, taking on archetypes, taking on attitudes and accusations flowing from all directions, I am really in awe of her. And there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from her life and from the cause she launched and fought for and sacrificed so greatly.
Planned Parenthood hails founder Margaret Sanger as a champion of civil rights. But one thing they don't talk about is the racism behind her fight to legalize abortion. A group of African-American leaders want to focus attention on her ideology and how it affected black birth rates. Abigail Robertson has more on this story.
Margaret Sanger strived for a society that limited births to only those she deemed fit to have children.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin.
Many pro-choice advocates see her as a hero, but critics call her a racist eugenics promoter who targeted black communities with her Planned Parenthood clinics.
Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, once said, colored people are like weeds, they need to be exterminated.
People don't understand that 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in minority communities, and that minority communities shoulder a disproportionate amount of abortion.
Dr. King says while African Americans make up only 13% of the U.S. population, over 30% of aborted babies are from black mothers.
Under the veil of secrecy and deception, 60+ million babies have not been born because they were aborted legally since '73. 1/3 of that population belong to the African American community.
But they want to just talk about this basic looking kind of weird chick because she's got a rack. And that's it. It frustrates me a little bit because, talk radio used to really be a force for, information and informing people. I mean, you got the Democrats in the Senate. This is another story that really just, when I heard about it a few days ago, and, matter of fact, when the whole thing came out and they said Trump was pissed off and I looked into it, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats were literally trying to extort the Republicans to get this guy's confirmations through. They wanted $1 billion. And it's not a story because it opens up Pandora's box, right? So you have the Democrats in the Senate who all make, a really good six-figure salary, $190,000 or whatever a year, perks galore. But in order to confirm Trump's nominees, they would have done it if the Republicans gave them $1 billion towards all these NGOs and, organizations that they can then, so this is how they get rich, that they can then get a kickback from. So do you see the politics in that? They can scream and holler all day long in the swamp, Republicans and Democrats, but apparently, according to what the Democrats just did in the Senate, if you pay them enough money, they will confirm anybody. And then they'll go out there and say how much they didn't want them confirmed. It's the biggest fucking okie doke I've ever seen in my life. And it's not a story. And it's not a story because if the Democrats are doing it, Republicans are doing it. You see why I'm dangerous? I have no allegiance to anything but the truth. That's why I'm dangerous. True story. But, I don't know. These are just some of the things that, go through my mind. I'm going to have to check out. It's 11 o'clock. Let me see what's going on in Talk Radio World. Oh, and one last thing. This whole gerrymandering thing in Texas. Again, why are we giving oxygen to the lunatic left? These are the same Democrats in Texas who pulled this stunt a couple years ago when they got on a private jet and flew to D.C. I think it was about voting rights, if I'm not mistaken. So we all know how this is going to end, right? Governor Abbott issues warrant for arrest like he's doing right now. They're going to come back. Everything's going to be fine. But we're giving this buffoonery oxygen. Why? And then you got to ask yourself, why are they doing all this buffoonish stuff? Because as long as we're talking about their buffoonery, we're not talking about the biggest scandal in American history. The Russia collusion hoax being exposed. We're not talking about what Obama did, what Biden did, what Hillary Clinton did, James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and all the rest of the people who created this Russia collusion hoax. So, keep falling for the Democrats and their buffoonery. But this Texas gerrymandering thing, been there, done that. We already know how it's going to end. And if you don't remember, here it is. Those are just my thoughts for the day.
This morning, Governor Abbott's threatening the arrests of dozens of Democratic state lawmakers.
It's after they skipped town during the special session and headed to D.C. to protest a GOP-led effort to change voting laws. Kathy Hernandez is live outside the Houston Food Bank, which was at one time a drive-through voting location. Kathy, what's the latest?
Good morning. This is definitely a battle that has no sign of ending soon.
All of the claims that have been made criticizing this legislation really are bogus.
A showdown from Texas to Washington.
We knew what the stakes were the moment we started planning for this.
More than 50 state representatives will meet with members of Congress in Washington today. They're urging Congress quickly pass legislation protecting voting rights. They left Texas for the Capitol on Monday to avoid voting on a controversial election bill they say would restrict people of color from voting.
We are doing the work for the people. We are representing the people.
The bill would include multiple changes, such as banning drive-through voting locations that had overwhelming positive response here in Harris County. House Republicans say it would make elections more secure. They voted yesterday to track down and arrest Democrats in Washington, despite it being out of their jurisdiction. However, Governor Abbott has said they'll be arrested when they return to Texas.
So the only way that the Democrats can continue to hide from this is to remain out of the state. And what I, as governor, will do, I will continue to call special session after special session after special session every single month until we address and vote on these bills.
And this special session ends on August 7th. Democrats in Washington say they'll remain there for as long as it takes. Reporting live at the Houston Food Bank, Kathy Hernandez, KPRC 2 News.